Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bear Down Ballers. I'm Ryan Wall here with Jordan Pollock. And Jordan, for the second time in the past 3 seasons, Tommy Lloyd and the Arizona Wildcats are Sweet 16 bound.
Yeah, they are. It's exciting. It's an exciting time for City of Tucson, especially just for what the program was dealing with right before Tommy Lloyd arrived and kind of the state of things. And now it's awesome. We're getting to it. We're getting to a conversation we were just talking about right before we started of getting in that somewhat of a blue blood conversation if we just continue with the ability to make long sustained runs and continue to keep the program at a high level.
Yeah. If Arizona keeps winning this season and in the future, they for sure could be a blue blood very soon. But getting into this win against Dayton, they beat them 78-68. And this was kind of a weird game. The first half, it kind of was a half of runs. Arizona went on a run, and then Dayton went on a 10-0 run at one point. Arizona had 11 first half turnovers. Caleb Love had 13 points in the first half, only 6 in the second half. Made a couple big shots though. But Jordan, where I wanted to start in this was with the start of this game for Arizona, and that's Jaden Bradley because he took over the bulk share of the point guard minutes for Colin Boswell, who was in foul trouble, who played very poorly, only had 2 points and 2 assists. He only played 18 minutes, and it was the reverse of what we saw in the game against Long Beach State. He was passive. He didn't seem energetic. He wasn't confident in his shot. That's Boswell. But on the other hand, Jaden Bradley was excellent in this game. 12 points, 3 steals, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocks, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. We know he struggles sometimes there. I thought he was the difference. He didn't score 20 points, obviously, but his pace that he played with and controlling the offense really, to me, was the difference in this game. What do you think of Bradley's play?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's a big part of I think what we've wanted to see all year is them to complement each other really well. When one of them is playing somewhat not super efficient, that the other one in their style kind of picks it up, is able to get downhill, is able to make plays for himself at the rim, specifically with Bradley and dishing it out and just get things rolling quick because that's when this team plays their best is when they're getting out on the floor and they're running. And that was an awesome thing to see of Bradley kind of stepping up in that space where you said Boswell the first game played out of his mind, and this game just shot wasn't falling, a little unconfident. He didn't even score until the second half off of 2 free throws. But Bradley just kind of took over. I think 27 minutes is huge for a point guard coming off the bench. And yeah, he played really well.
Yeah, and I think the difference is with these two players, and Boswell likes to slow it down, kind of an old school type of player, and then Bradley likes to push the pace. And also, Bradley is a good passer, but to me, it's just his speed. It surprised me every single time. He's so quick to the basket, and he's one of the better players I've seen as of late finishing through contact. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like every time he drives to the hoop and somebody touches him, it's gonna go in, however it does. But so yeah, I really think he provides that spark. I don't think he should start. I really love his energy off the bench, and I really liked Tommy Lloyd sticking with Bradley when that was working later in the first half. We've talked about that idea the last couple of weeks when Boswell has been struggling. Do you go to Bradley? Do you start Bradley? Do you swap the minutes? But what do you think about that decision from Tommy Lloyd to ride the hot hand in Jaden Bradley in this game against Dayton?
I think in March, that's the biggest thing you got to do because guys can just if they're hot, usually they either stay hot or guys that are known for getting hot, they'll just go crazy out of nowhere. Like we're watching, if you watch the Houston Texas A&M game last night, freeze in crunch time that helped force overtime in that game, and this is the time of the season when guys can just all of a sudden light a quick match and light a whole house on fire with how well they can shoot, and break out
Yeah.
of the inefficiency, even if it's for a whole game they're 0 of 10, and then all of a sudden they need a 1-3 with 5 seconds left, and they make it for some reason.
Yeah, that's why we love March Madness. That's why this is the best postseason in all of sports. But Dayton star Deron Holmes, he was very good in this game. 23 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. Also hit 2 3-pointers. He was such a hard player to guard, and I really think Ballo struggled. But I kind of expected a little bit of that because when you have a guy that's 6'10" or bigger in Deron Holmes, but he sometimes moves like a Kevin Durant type of player where he's on the wing and he's handling the ball and he's driving in and his wingspan is huge and he's jumping up for lobs and passes. I just think that's such a difficult player and style of player for a guy like Ballo to guard, and he did struggle. He only played 22 minutes. He only had 8 points, 3 rebounds. One of his worst games in a few weeks. In this one, what do you think about that, and what did you see from Ballo in this one?
Yeah, I think it was a tough mismatch, and I really give credit to Tommy Lloyd for switching it up and playing small ball for a majority of the second half. Because this one was one of Umar Ballo's like lesser minutes kind of game. But they still were feeding him through some of the first half, and to where he had a few dunks. But I just think the athleticism of Holmes was just a thing that was just they didn't want to play with that kind of fire, if that makes sense. And that was smart because at the end of the first half was Holmes hit two of his threes at the end of the first half off pick and pops where Umar goes goes down to cover a late drive or a late roll, which left Holmes open for a three. And that was kind of the bigger thing that I noticed was that, and that started a big run for Dayton to end that first half was his 2 threes
Yeah.
that made it within a like 2 or 3 score game. And so I really give Tommy Lloyd credit for kind of jumping it up, doing a little different, trying to stun a lot more when you have more athletic guys to be able to take him on the rim. But it put some guys in some uncomfortable positions. We saw KJ Lewis kind of being isolated in the post with him a few times, and where the game was at, I think it's good for some of these guys to get that kind of experience, and especially going into their next matchup. I think they're probably going to watch a lot of film on how they were kind of playing against the post isolations and what they've got with Clemson coming up.
Yeah, 100%. And something I think that Arizona could do a better job of is kind of running plays for their big men and kind
Mm.
of running some pick and roll actions for Ballo, for Keyshawn Johnson to get them going. But Ballo, as poor as he played, Keyshawn Johnson picked up the slack for him. He was really good, and he was a savior for Arizona in this game. 13 points, 7 boards, 6 for 10 from the field, along with Pella Larson, who had 13 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds. Pella was just excellent in this game, very aggressive on defense, and Pella showed that he can take on a bigger role on offense as a point guard sometimes when you don't have Kylan Boswell in, and maybe if Bradley's not in or they wanted just a different view of the offense. I really think Pella has shown that he can add more on the offense and not just pass sporadically or do things here and there, but show that he can do things on a regular basis. And I think that's a big thing because we've talked about Arizona's 3 starting guards being the key to a victory for Arizona in the postseason, but we've seen that Arizona now has many different players that can contribute. And also, when I'm watching a lot of these games, there's very few teams that have 2 solid bench players like Arizona does in KJ Lewis and Jaden Bradley. And then Krivas, who provided some really
Mm-hmm.
good minutes. I wanted to ask you about him because he only played 9 minutes in this game, but I was really impressed about how well he defended Deron Holmes. He is a bigger, longer guy than Ballo, so I think that helped him. But I was really, it really surprised me a little bit, but I was really happy to see Krivas's performance.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Krivas did a really great job. He gave some great minutes for Umar Ballo, just another big body to throw at him, but the composition, like you said, is different. He weighs quite a bit less than Umar. Umar's a little bit slower, and just the extra length kind of helps Krivas. And yeah, and that was I thought huge for some stretches. I want to talk about Pela because he played great, high efficiency, 7 rebounds and 6 assists. I think is huge for a guy that kind of can get hot and cold at times, and he was making plays even without scoring. It kind of took him to the second half to be able to start scoring a little bit more. But he just plays great. He plays with a great tenacity and a great effort, and he's going to be a huge reason why this team is going to keep winning, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's good to see because he's one of the veterans on this team. We've talked about this. It's him, Keyshawn Johnson, and Caleb Love that have the most experience in Balo, but it's really in his last year. This is the type of growth that you want to see from a Pelle Larson. You want to see that from a guy that's been there, done that, but now he's contributing in so many different ways. So it's great to see. Pella is so valuable to this team. He's also, as you mentioned, he's very inconsistent with, to me, the scoring, but to me, he's very consistent with the effort, the energy that he plays with, and all of the little things that maybe don't show up on the stat sheet that he does every single night. But this overall, to me, Jordan, was I thought it was a good win. I don't think it was Arizona's best performance, but like I said to you before we started recording today, is all these top seeds, UConn's been blowing teams out, Purdue's been blowing teams out, and having some of their best performances in a while. Maybe it's a good thing that Arizona hasn't had a 100-point performance, hasn't beat somebody by 30 points in the tournament yet, because hopefully Arizona gets that full team great performance when they most need it, and they need it the most later on, maybe this weekend in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, or maybe down the line in Phoenix. But I wanted to move on, Jordan, and talk about Arizona's next game. They're facing maybe an unlikely opponent, per se. They're facing number 60 Clemson, who beat number 3 Baylor in a close game yesterday on Sunday, as we're recording this. But Arizona is going to face the Clemson Tigers at 7:09 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. back in Arizona, and local time where this game's going to be taking place just a short while from Tucson in LA at the Crypto.com Arena. And this one's on CBS national TV. The first game of the Thursday Sweet 16 slate. What do you think about this matchup when you first saw it come together?
It's an interesting matchup, I think, especially watching them play against Baylor yesterday, and super awesome for Clemson. Brad Brownell, it's his second ever Sweet 16 with Clemson. I think the first time was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. But we were texting about it, and just the style they play is like kind of interesting. They don't really, it's very different, I think, to where like star power than Dayton, because Dayton, they had 2 guys that were pretty much their known scorers, and everybody else just kind of helped out between the cracks. And where this team, there's like, I think the best way I could put it is it's full of tweeners. Like, I don't really know for sure what position they are, but there's guys with good skill. They're okay athletes. They've got good size, and they just make winning basketball plays. And that's the biggest thing that I saw from the Baylor game for sure, and especially getting deeper into the tournament when you're playing teams, namely more blue blood teams that have 4-star, 5-star guys that fit a specific positional mold. That it can be a tough matchup, I think, at times, especially when it's just something you're not really used to playing.
Yeah, 100%. And something I said to you earlier is that Clemson they play 7 guys in their rotation mainly, and 5 of the 7 guys are at least 6'8" or bigger or taller. And they start 3 guys or 2 guys that are 6'10" with PJ Hall. but Ian Shefflin, but they don't really have a true center. I agree. They kind of have a mixed roster. PJ Hall is technically their center, but I think he'll struggle against Ballo. I just like you kind of said, I don't think some of these guys are as good at athletes as Keyshawn Johnson or an Umar Ballo, even though they're taller than Johnson. I think Keyshawn Johnson defensively is going to match up perfectly with one of their big men, whoever gets matched up on him. But yeah, I think this is a really good matchup for Arizona. I think it favors them. Obviously, in the odds makers have Arizona favored by 6.5 points right now. But yeah, I'm not going to say Arizona lucked out because no game's easy. It's hard to get through this March Madness stretch. To win 6 games in a row is very hard. To win 4 to get to the Final Four, very tough, as we know. But I just think if Arizona would have faced Baylor, I think they would have gave Arizona more trouble just because they have so many guards that can beat you. On their best night, they're an elite 3-point shooting team, and Clemson just isn't that. They're about 35% from deep. But yeah, like we've mentioned, the big guys, but they do have a player, a guard who's been elite. That's Chase Hunter. He's been really good for them. Over 20 points the last 2 games. He's been elite, but I think if Arizona can slow him down, I think Arizona just has more ways to win this one. But Jordan, on that note, I want to take a break and hear from our sponsor. And on the other end, when we come back from our break, we're going to get more into Clemson and get into our predictions.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are now partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 all through the NCAA tournament. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not that bet hits. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you get up to $1,500 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we do have some fun stuff coming for the conference tournaments and especially for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and what I love the most, a nice parlay boost for anything you could possibly imagine betting on in the NCAA tournament, from odds and getting an at-large bid to Final Four futures to the highest seed to make to the Sweet 16. I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet for your March Madness needs. So go download the BetMGM app, use the code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request: the best way to support the Field of 68 and our content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod, like and share the YouTube videos, tell your friends about us. It helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
All right, Jordan, let's get back into it. Let's give our thoughts on how we see this matchup playing out. How do you see this one playing out? We've talked about the matchups. Clemson, they're a bigger team on paper, but don't have the level of athletes I think we can agree upon that Arizona does. Arizona likes to play a lot faster, but Clemson is also a really good defensive team. I was really impressed by their guards defending on the ball, very aggressive, very handsy. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think the style and the kind of way the game's going to go for Arizona, I think will determine a lot of things. Like, are they going to try to get out and run? Are they going to try to slow it down and just try to out athlete per possession? Are they going to keep Umar in the game and try to shut down a lot of the post work that Clemson does? Because that was one thing I noticed is Baylor did not really have very many inside presences. And I think that's one thing that Arizona probably has going its way is, like, Jaden Bradley had 3 blocks on Saturday, which is crazy to think about. But is that going to be kind of a harder thing with the athletes? But they also have the size. Is that going to be something they're just not really going to care about?
Mm-hmm.
So I think probably likely Umar gets a lot of run and they just try to defend the crap out of the paint and they force Clemson into shots that they don't really want to take. I think that's probably the smartest thing to do. They run Gerard off the 3-point line and they make guys take contested mid-range shots. But like I said, this team is skilled. Like they have one of the most improved player from the ACC and Elon Shefflin. Really funny story how Clemson band, they all wear chef hats in honor of him. And he had a great game last night. He was going crazy.
That guy's one of the most unlikely players that is so skilled. When he gets the ball in
For
the
sure.
paint, he makes like a spin move in the paint and he just scores over somebody bigger or stronger. That guy is really good, but also just looking at this matchup, they do have decent guards. Clemson, that is Chase Hunter, Joe Girard, 41% from three, really good, but
Mhm.
I just don't think I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. And I think like we always say and like it is in March when you get into these fights and these, late in games and it's close, you need that big shot maker. Arizona has that. They've had multiple guys that have shown they can be that guy late in games. This past weekend, Jaden Bradley was one of those guys, Pella Larson, but we know Caleb Love, although he struggled in the second half, he can be that guy too. I just think Arizona should win this game pretty handedly. I think it's going to be like the game against Dayton. I think early on Clemson's going to give Arizona a really good fight, but I just think they're going to wear down, and I think that's because we're going to see like I mentioned, the elite athletes are going to shine with Keyshawn Johnson and Pella Larson and Caleb Love. I think they're going to exploit Clemson in this one.
Yeah, I think it's a hard matchup because I feel like on paper, I think I look at the matchup, I look at this Clemson team, and almost a majority of all my brackets, I picked New Mexico to win in the first round over them, to upset them because New Mexico is so much more athletic and they've got some household names. But this team just like it's hard to compare because it's like this team just plays basketball so well. Like they have so many skilled guys, and that's a hard thing to counter with guys that are also good at basketball, but they're just supremely more dominant athletes. So that's a hard thing to kind of compound against. And I think it makes it really hard for this pick because I want to say that I think like Arizona is just going to run and they're going to force a lot of turnovers, but I don't really think it'll probably be like that. I think probably at most, I think it'll be back and forth. And I think Arizona will probably have a lead at the end and they're going to have to hold on tight. I think it'll probably be pretty similar to what we saw with Houston and A&M last night. I see Arizona staying in control, but I don't see Clemson really going away at all at any point. And so I think Arizona's probably not going to cover the spread, but I think they'll probably win by probably 3 or 4. Probably a 3-pointer or 2 baskets. I think it'll be a lot closer just because on paper it looks like it shouldn't be that hard of a game. But I'm still taking Arizona to win. I think Clemson probably covers the spread though.
It's surprising. I could see that happening, but I think Arizona is going to win by more than they beat Dayton by. I think they're going to win by 12 points. I just think that in the first half we saw Clemson hang around against Baylor because Baylor wasn't hitting shots. But I think unlike Baylor, Arizona, when they're not hitting shots, they can find other ways to score with Pella Larson at the rim, with Keyshawn Johnson taking it in, with Ballo on a normal Ballo night, he gets 15 at least. So I just think that Arizona is not going to let Clemson hang in if they're not hitting enough shots. And we saw in some of these games, Clemson, they're just like they had a decent shooting night against Baylor, but I don't think they have any elite shooters, and I really think it's going to come down to that. And so I think Arizona will win this one pretty handedly, and I really think that this is obviously every game's a must win, but we've talked about different teams have different paths, have different matchups, and I really think Arizona has had a good path, and I think that Clemson's going to be a little bit tougher early than Dayton was, but I think this is going to be a great game for them on their path to hopefully my dream game I circled at the start of this whole tournament was Arizona UC or UNC, the Caleb Love game. I really want to see that this weekend. But any other final thoughts you have on this game versus Clemson?
One final thought. The last time Caleb Love played against Clemson, he had 23 points. Something interesting, especially the fact that he's from the ACC. He could be seeing some more ACC opponents in the next few games. So it'll be interesting. I think something that I haven't really thought about a ton until now is also the fact that it's going to be in LA. And I was texting you last night. The game last night was Baylor and Clemson was in Memphis. I think it's probably around 6 hours, probably to Waco, a little bit more to Clemson, South Carolina. But the gym, that arena seemed somewhat empty to me. It was definitely probably under 50% max capacity. But the fact now that Clemson's got to go all the way across the country to play a team that's a quick 6 hour drive down the interstate to go to LA. So, and Arizona, I think probably not as bad as Vegas, but they can take over LA, especially being last time I was there for a tournament for a Sweet 16 game in 2015, they packed out that arena.
Yeah, hopefully
otherwise known as Staples then, but Crypto now. But I think that'll be a huge thing. The atmosphere for Arizona, that'll be a huge plus for them.
Yeah, we heard a lot of Arizona chants in Utah this past weekend, but yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think Arizona it should sound close to a home game, obviously on a neutral site court, but also something about Caleb Love. Last time he was in the Sweet 16 2 years ago against UCLA, he dropped a 30 piece. I think he's going to drop 25 this weekend on Thursday in this one. I think he's going to have a great game. He's due for a great one. He performs in the big moments he has in the past. I think he's going to do it again. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's episode of Bear Down Ballers. I'm Ryan Wall. He's Jordan Pollock. Follow us on X at Bear Down